I can't do negative today. Positive vibes, positive vibes.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. Need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Welcome, Ronald. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. Getting, the info from down south. Georgia seems to be, at least their grassroots are getting things together, pushing back on the committees and making sure they're doing as they're told. Unfortunately, up here in the Northeast, they're just not listening. They don't want to listen. And they're just darned that they're going to do it their way, and we need to get out of the way. So it's sad. And we were talking actually about, amending the Constitution, and we were talking about the Second Amendment, and sorry, not the Second Amendment, the Dominion machines. And Massachusetts has amended their state constitution, correct?
They have more times, and then you have to ask, have they done it lawfully? And that's a whole other question.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Was it done by we the people? Was it done properly? Or was it simply done by a few word changes and people pretending like it was done? And that's something that's going to have to be visited and really looked at in the very near future. And I know you are with wethepeople2.us, diving in and making sure by what authority are these people changing laws, making RSAs? Where are you getting this permission? How are you forcing us to do this? And the biggest problem we have now is we have three branches of government, and the third one the second one, the legislature was supposed to be there so we could redress our grievances, so that we could get remedy. And that's completely disappeared because they're oblivious to what their actual oath of office is for. So we were, used to rely on the judicial system, the courts, and that is no longer a functioning branch of government, is it?
No, I mean, most of government is not functioning properly. And as far as redress of grievances, it said we have a right to redress grievances. Never said they had they had to listen. See, but they were our elected representatives, and if they didn't listen, they knew we would just remove them because they were our representatives. They were direct contact with government. That's how it was supposed to work, but we've long since gotten past that. So now we have a better way of handling it. It's called due process. And due process says we have to instruct our representatives and make them and require them in exact observance of fundamental principles of law. If they don't, we get to remove them.
Right.
I like it that way.
Yep, that we're supposed to be able to remove them. Right now we can't because they've all been bamboozled into, well, you vote them out. That's the same thing. It isn't the same thing, because if somebody's in there for 6 years and they need to be removed right now, they need to go. We can't wait till the next election because, as we know, those are not fair and equal, and we can't trust those right now. But the reason that we brought you on is, did you know? This segment, I wanted to talk about, the only religion that's truly protected by law in America. What is it? And according to whom were these set? And how did that initial, I want to say decision, rule, it's not a rule, but it's by our founding fathers. I'll say that because I don't want to give it all away. How has that affected us now today? So we kind of want to start at the beginning. And the founding fathers said there was the only religion that's protected by law in America is?
The answer is Christianity.
Yes.
See, when our nation was founded, they had to, in England, they had the law of God, right? They had the Bible. That was the foundation of their law. However, they allowed kings to make edicts on top of that. So the kings would put in forth the edicts, and over time, the edicts overrode all of God's law. So that made them escape the Church of England. Church of England was tyrannical. So they came to the New World as Puritans to purify the law, bringing it back to the law of God. So they stripped out all man-made law. So they aligned it with the laws of nature and nature's God, as it says in the Declaration of Independence. But in order to know which God they're speaking about, we need to know which God they're speaking about, right? Are they talking about the Christian God? Are they talking about the Muslim God? Are they talking about the Buddhist God? Which God are they talking about? And our founders were clear. They were talking about the Christian God. In fact, Christ was named in every single colonial charter by name.
Really? Everyone?
Yeah.
Well, no wonder they want separation of church and state. Not we, they do, because they don't want to protect that right, and they want to take it out of the schools and the education.
So Massachusetts Constitution still to this day says that, in Part the First, Article 3, it says that every denomination of Christians is protected, and only Christians are protected.
Now, when you say protected, what do you mean by protected? So if you were a Buddhist, you couldn't what?
Well, the reason why they're protected is because our law, since it's based on the law of God, in fact, all of our law must conform with the law of God, the law of Christian God, for it to be law. So a Muslim has a different point of view as to what religion, what their religion has a different point of view as to what's acceptable.
Right.
So the law in our nation is based on Christianity, because Christianity is not just a religion. It's not just a belief system. It's a framework for governance. People don't realize that. And every country has their own framework of governance based on some type of religion.
Right.
So ours is based on Christianity. So the problem with other religions is they're not compatible. So if our law is Christian, you can't put Sharia law here, for instance, and it be protected.
Correct.
Because it would be against the law.
Right. Just as atheism is not Christianity.
Yeah, right. Or
but you're right to be a Muslim, to be a Buddhist, to be an atheist is protected by law. However, you cannot bring it into our government, into our schools, into what the founding fathers wrote about, what the principles of our country were based on, because they don't match.
Right. It's repugnant to our law. So anything repugnant to our law cannot be law. So there's a lot of, like Minnesota, that has the Muslim call to prayer on the loudspeaker, and that's not lawful. But yet
it continues, and yet the legislators vow up and down that that's freedom of religion. So
that's not freedom of religion, because freedom of religion allows you individually to believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe in the mushroom fairy, you can believe in the mushroom fairy. But however, Virginia Declaration of Rights, section number 16 says, at the end of the day, you can believe anything you want. Nobody can force you to believe whatever you want to believe. And that's the protection you have in America. That's why people come here. However, at the end of the day, you still owe everybody Christian forbearance, love, and charity, because we are a Christian nation. And that cannot be overwritten by any legislature.
So now you can kind of see a pattern of how they're eroding and unweaving the Constitution and our innumerable rights, more importantly, our Bill of Rights, by jamming in these making little rips and saying, oh, that's freedom of this and freedom of that. So our founders, the founding fathers, reserved the liberty of conscience for Christians. What is the liberty of conscience, and why does it specifically exclude papists?
So liberty of conscience, as we said, was our right to believe, and what our right to believe is protected. Only Christians are, because our law is based on Christianity. However, our founding fathers excluded papists.
And who are papists? They're not like people that, write or, use lots of paper or anything.
No. The founding fathers were influenced by Protestant beliefs. There was Protestant Reformation, which caused them to be very wary of Catholicism or papists. Papists are Catholics.
Oh.
Because Catholics were loyal to the Pope and not to the state, which was a threat to American sovereignty. And that's what they fled, right? They fled the Church of England, which was Catholicism.
Correct.
And they were afraid that church would become the same tyrannical force here. And they actually didn't believe it was very Christian, because it had deviated so far away from principles that the Puritans wanted to purify the law back to where it belonged.
So they wanted to go back to the laws of nature. They wanted to go back to foundational law because it was all based on God, the Christian God. And so therefore, from day one of setting foot here, that was the intent. And when the founding fathers started writing, they embraced that, and our whole foundation was built on that. And go ahead, sorry.
That is based on natural reason. That everything that's in line with natural reason, is it reasonable in nature? Yes. Then it's lawful, because it's based on creation. The way we were created, the way nature was created by our Creator. And who's our Creator?
God. Christ. Yep.
John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That means there's a separation somewhere, and that Word was Jesus. And people don't know that either, because they're so misled today. But Jesus is the Creator. He's been here since the beginning. It says so in the Bible. Multiple times he's in every single book of the Bible.
Yep.
So even in the Old Testament.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that got glossed over? So when our legislators and our, mouthy people, want to shout us down, they always say, separation of church and state, separated, of church and state. Now, originally, based on what we just talked about, it was intended to prevent papists, Catholics, people that, honor and believe the Pope, from making it the state-sponsored religion. But they're not using it that way now. They're using it as a wedge that you can't pray before lunch at school. You can't, we can't have Bibles in the school. You can't use the Bible against having LGBTQ and all those disgusting books that are in there. They just keep hammering us with it. But yet that was not the original intent, but their skewed, whacked out, New Age definition is totally disrupting what the founding fathers wanted.
That's correct. And that's what they do with everything. They take all of our law and all of our words of our Constitution, they subvert it. The common good, the general welfare, the Commerce Clause, the Elastic Clause, the natural born citizen. They've taken all of these pieces of our Constitution and they've completely stretched them beyond the limit, or completely redefined them. Now, in order to redefine it, you're actually changing the Constitution, and no one has the authority to change the Constitution unless they follow the the way prescribed in the Constitution.
Correct.
Otherwise, you have to define it based on what the Founding Fathers understood and thought of that particular spirit of the law, what they believed about the law.
Correct.
Yeah, and that hasn't changed.
So up here, we've got a gentleman by the name Daniel Richard, and he is in the courts. It's been, I don't know, 5-6 years now at this point, maybe 4 or 5. And he's been fighting about the Dominion machines. And he's in court and he's pushing back saying, show me in the Constitution where it says, as technology rolls along, we're allowed to put in machines or AI or robots or, whatever. You can vote by just simply thinking. He states to the court, the Constitution and what it states about counting ballots must be interpreted and read in its plain text of the time. If it hasn't been amended, then you have to go by the moderator shall sort and count the vote. It doesn't say with a machine. It says the moderator, which means 2 eyes on every ballot, sorting and counting. But yet the courts, no, that's not what it means. Shut up, you peon. Shut up, you pro se litigant. We know better than you. I'm the man in the black robe sitting higher than you on this side of the wooden fence. Which is, oh, by the way, where there's another kind, they're using another kind of law, and it's called canon law. Now, where does canon law come from?
Well, canon law comes from the Vatican. So we're supposed to separate church and state, and we were supposed to exclude papists, especially because they didn't want papists to become control of our nation at all. And yet our entire judicial system is run by Catholicism, by papists, by papal law, by the verdicts and edicts of the Pope, not
Who
the
is
law, not the law of
unelected?
Christ. Yeah.
Unelected. I didn't vote for him. I'm pretty sure there isn't anybody except for all the, dudes in the robes there again. Their little red robes and white robes and whatever they are. They're the ones that elected him with their little smoke signals. I didn't, you didn't. So therefore, that's administrative. We never gave him any authority. I don't think anybody in the world, even in a communist country, whatever, gave him the authority for these kind of laws.
Yes, but they gave themselves by papal bull the authority, calling himself the vicar of Christ, which means he's Christ on earth. So he put himself in the same category as Christ.
So therefore, in my thinking, it'll be a cold day that I go there because I might be struck by lightning for being too close to him. I mean, who does that and gets away with it?
Never mind the fact that the history of the Vatican is not one of Christianity. It's the opposite. You can see the symbolism all over the Vatican. But the Vatican owns the City of London, and the City of London has a little church. That is where all of the Bar Association comes from.
And that's their little headquarters.
That's their little headquarters. There's four middle churches. There's 4 churches in there, and we are part of the middle church in America. So how do we tie in to the City of London? So we've got the capital of Italy, which is Rome, and that's the Vatican, 14 square miles with their own flag, their own rules, and their own ruler, who owns the City of London, which is 1 square mile, which is all about money, with the little church in the middle. And that's where the Bar Association resides. Now, the Bar Association, I know for America, but I can't say for other countries, you'd probably know, but our attorneys in the United States who have Esquire after their name, which is a royal title, are registered at the Bar Association, the British Accreditation Registry, in the City of London, answer to them, who are directly related to the Pope
And so his edicts and his rules, his canon law, come shifting through the city of London, through that church, directly into the United States, through our attorneys. And our attorneys work in the judiciary, the judicial branch. And so that's how the canon law gets into our courts. And that's what they're following. Sorry to be like paint by the numbers, but I think it's important people understand that drift.
Yes, and in fact, our founding fathers wrote in the early Constitution an amendment that's disappeared.
What?
that removed these papists or these attorneys, esquires, from being able to be in government.
But yet, oh, wait a minute, let me get it's stuck under there. My book, where I think it's something like 98% of the politicians have law degrees.
Right.
Are esquires. And
That's
they lost. So when they lost that little amendment, I mean, did they like wipe it with a cloth?
Yes. Yeah, and they replaced it with another amendment, the 13th Amendment, Slavery Amendment. But so they've completely just read over it like it was nothing, not even there. And that's what War of 1812 was about. It was about to get those original documents, make sure that was gone, because that's how they subverted us. And in fact, all these attorneys are supposed to be registering as foreign agents. FARA. Foreign Agent Registration Act.
Which is what Hunter Biden was supposed to do, along with all his little friends at Burisma. They were all supposed to register as foreign agents because they were working and taking money from another country, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, if a foreign country gives you, the bar, your first loyalty is to the bar.
Correct.
So you have an oath of office to the Constitution, which comes second to your oath to the bar.
Last time I checked it, so it shouldn't. But looking at the world around us, we keep saying you can't. The Constitution says they shouldn't, but they're doing it because they've subverted us. And they've I don't even know how to describe it. Have they flipped the Constitution? Have they substituted a new one? Are they pretending that theirs supersedes everything? I mean, the way I understand it, the founding fathers, we the people, have our enumerated rights. New Hampshire has 39. We have a lot. We have our Bill of Rights, and we have our state constitutions, because at the time, every state was a country, sovereign country, and we were sovereign citizens of our state, i.e. country. And so I lost my train of thought. Oops. Where was I going with that? Shoot. What were we talking about? Oh, so then in each one of our states and countries, we the people got together and we made a social compact with our state governments that we elect you, and we want you to do this, 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 this. The key word being phrase, we instruct you, we want you to do this, this, and this. And during that time period, it was good for a while, but then they got all these states, the 13 states, and they got together and said, we're going to have a formal federal government, but they're only going to be in charge of infrastructure, defense, the military, and foreign trade. But yet, look at how many three-letter agencies we have now and how much they've stuck their nose into everything. But the hierarchy is we the people formed a social compact with our state to do those three things, same as the federal government, that they've completely, stepped all over us and expanded their job description. And then the states made a social compact with the federal government, so they're on the bottom to do those three things. And since 1913, I may be off, correct me please, they've absolutely flipped everything on its head, put us on the bottom, and the people have allowed it. And where we should be saying, we did give you the authority, I didn't elect you, But they come at the beginning of every session. Well, we've got 1,512 bills. Well, where the hell did you get them? I didn't give you one. Nobody in this state gave you one. You're getting them from lobbyists and pulling them out of where the sun doesn't shine.
And they all violate the 18 powers that we delegated to them. There's 18 powers in the Constitution that says these are the only things you can do. But yet they have half of the laws that are currently passed have nothing to do with those categories of those 18 powers. They're called non-positive law. And all positive law must still conform with the laws of nature and nature's God for it to be enforceable. And we didn't give them arbitrary power over our lives or liberty.
Correct.
In fact, the Massachusetts Constitution says, I have every power, I've retained every power, jurisdiction, and right, other than those 18 powers I gave to the Congress.
So only those 18, but it still doesn't give them free license. We can retract those at any time.
That's correct. We can alter and abolish whenever they become destructive. And they're beyond destructive.
So to wrap this little section up in what we've been talking about, so the oaths of office in America are rooted in Christian principles.
That's correct.
So it makes me want to ask the question, and many others, how do these politicians and people, it's mostly politicians, lawyers, selectmen, that kind of stuff, how do they swear an allegiance to laws that are founded on Christian principles when they don't have Christian principles? They don't share them. So they're falsely swearing an oath to our Christian government when they have no Christian beliefs. So therefore, how are they even allowed to be there? And if they do get caught not following those principles, what happens to them?
Well, they're not following the Constitution and they're violating their oath, they're out. So our Constitution, when Massachusetts, for instance, when the Constitution was first written, it said that in order to be governor, you actually had to be Christian. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be governor unless you were Christian for obvious reasons. However, people will say, well, the Constitution now says that there can be no religious test. That just means I can't give you a quiz on how Christian you are.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you still have to follow these Christian forbearance, these principles of Christian forbearance, because if you don't, all of our law is based on Christianity. The center of our entire being here in the country is Christianity. And surrounding that is all of our rights that are also from our Creator, Christianity. Mm-hmm. How can you protect these two core pieces that make us legally free if you're not Christian?
You can't, and that's why we have such a government that is so fractured. We've got Democrats and Republicans, which are not constitutional. There's no place in the Constitution that says that you can have these parties and that they're deciding who you can vote for and not vote for. We've got people with dual citizenships. We've got people not following their oaths of office. We've got people that are bringing beliefs and laws and needs and wants and desires and aspirations that have nothing to do with the basis of our Constitution, the basis of our life, that we have God and we've got our rights, and they're just stomping all over it. And there doesn't seem to be anybody, the president or the vice president or anybody, that's holding them in check. And I thought the three branches of government were supposed to be a checks and balance, and yet they're not. And when we stand up here in New Hampshire, we have 11 pro se litigants, and I'm sure there's all over the United States people fighting. We just happen to be in court doing this, and we're getting beaten up. We're getting pushed underwater because they just come up with more canon law and more canon law, more canon law, and it's just us against all of them, and you can't get a foothold.
Well, you can't get a foothold by doing it the way they want you to do it.
Correct.
So then we have to work outside the system doing it based on the higher law. See, if mankind would just do what was right, we wouldn't need government at all. So this has been the struggle all of throughout history. Governments being tyrannical of the people. America was the only time that we had this experiment where we could self-govern. But how are we self-governing if we have a government telling us what to do? How does that make us self-governed?
It doesn't.
Government wasn't supposed to tell us what we could do, but they've convinced us that they are ruling over us, when in fact, we rule over them. So this is the way it's supposed to work. We have individual rights from God, from the beginning, that are unalienable. They cannot be taken away from us. And then you have the collective force that comes over here to protect the individual rights. That's the only reason why the collective comes together.
Correct.
There's no collective rights. There's only collective force. And the collective force come together for one sole purpose, to protect the individual liberties. But rather than these farmers and doctors and businessmen having to spend all their days protecting individual liberties, we decided to hire a group of trustees and servants to do that for us. That is the government. And we put government in a cage, bound by this piece of paper called the Constitution. And see, these are the limits. You can't go outside. So there's a big call today for people to change the Constitution. The Constitution is not what's flawed. It's that people are not demanding that our government
Stay in the box.
Constitution. They're not staying in the box. Like, for instance, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is not qualified. It doesn't matter what people think. She does not meet the eligibility requirements of being president of the United States as per the Constitution. It is mandated she cannot run.
She must be a natural born citizen.
That's right, which means something.
Right, not born in America, an American citizen, natural born, natural citizen. You must be natural born, and that means both of your parents had to have been citizens for 5 years at the time in this country when you were born.
You know, they had to be citizens. It doesn't make mention necessarily for the amount of time, but you have to be citizens for at least when the time you were born, both of your parents had to be citizens, because then you'd be more likely to grow up loving America. And they wanted to make sure that the president of the United States, the person who has control of our military, would have a loyalty to our nation. And not any divided loyalties to any other nation. Kamala Harris is not natural born citizen. And people make this mistake all the time. So they'll say, that's not true. Well, look in history, what Founding Fathers era, find out anywhere it said natural born citizen. It didn't exist. Those words did not exist. The closest it came was in England, the Blackstone, which said natural born subject. But are we subjects?
No.
No, feudalism is a completely different system of government. We left that behind. Remember, we purified that out. But then we have Vattel in the Law of Nations is the only book where the natural born citizen language existed.
Yep.
And it says born of two citizen parents is a natural born citizen. And then in 1790, even the Congress created a law, the Naturalization Act of 1790, that says natural born citizen is one of born to citizen parents.
Right, both.
So it is clear. It's absolutely clear. And then we have Supreme Court rulings right after that say Vattel's definition of natural born citizen, we agree with it in other contexts, but they believed in natural born citizen meaning what it meant. And it doesn't matter anyway. We have Ben Franklin distributing during the Continental Congress Vattel's works. And they said this couldn't have come at a better time. They were reading it during the Continental Convention.
Wow.
There's no controversy here. Natural born citizen means person born to citizen parents. And I gave Kamala Harris an opportunity to respond.
And she hasn't.
I sent her an affidavit, and she did not respond. So what's going to go on the record now is this public estoppel. It's public notice of estoppel by acquiescence. So we're going to be putting her on notice publicly that she cannot be president and that she's acquiesced. And by the doctrine of estoppel, she has to stop.
So let me just, before we go, throw out a what if. So Joey B totally loses his mind and has to step down. Not step down from running as a candidate, but step down. He has to go to the hospital. As vice president, she, according to everybody, becomes the president. But she can't because of what we just talked about. So what happens? What's going to happen? Nothing, because we need a lot more people to join us. We need millions of people to join us that say that they're patriots and God-loving Americans. They all need to be on wethepeople2.us and signing these notices and affidavits and understanding how we need to stop these people, get an official paper trail, and let them know that we're all understanding the Constitution and what they're doing wrong. What happens if he's gone and she steps in? Considering how it's going right now, how do we get her out? Or what happens? Who steps in apart from us, but who's going to back us from removing her? Or does that when we have to push on the Supreme Court?
There's some methods that are coming that we can make her step down. She cannot be president of the United States. That is clear. And anybody who aids and abets her will also be put on notice, because they too are violating their oath of office. And according to the self-executed provisions of the 14th Amendment, they're warring against the Constitution in rebellion, and they are guilty and automatically removed from office.
Committing treason?
Yeah, the words self-executing means it happens by itself without the need. She already has been removed from office. She's already self-executed because of the estoppel. She's officially been stopped. Now, the question is, will she continue violating the law and warring against the Constitution, which she will.
Yep, they all do.
Yep.
They all do.
And that then constitutes acts of treason.
Oh, boy. Well,
so, we'll see.
We will see. So again, I can't say it enough. We the people, the number 2.us, go there. There's Common Law Academy. You can get these law classes for free. Take them. The first 6 are really important, but take them all. The first 6 will get you really grounded in what you need to know. There are also the action tab, which you can click on, and it will show you what are the current notices that you need to read through and understand. And if you agree with them, you need to sign them. And then it will automatically be sent to, so if we're doing the secretaries of state, it will go to all the secretaries of the state. For this one, for Kamala Harris, this is going to go to her from all of us. And we're all putting her on notice that you can't do this. You cannot break the oath of office. You cannot break the Constitution. We don't give you permission. You're out. So, and on almost on a weekly basis, there are new affidavits, and you can also learn how to do your own, as I'm doing in the state of New Hampshire, and many people are across the United States. We're noticing our school boards. We're noticing our selectmen and councilmen. We're noticing our governors. And we all have got to get on the same page, and the best place is wethepeople2.us. And got anything you want to add to that?
Yes. Anybody who doesn't understand the efficacy of affidavits, these affidavits in America have won 10,000 cases. 10,000. And that represents 97% of the times they've been tried. However, this week, and I haven't even had to get a chance to get through it, there's a woman out of New Zealand whose daughter was injured as a result of vaccines. She sued with affidavits. She used affidavits, and she's collapsed nearly 90% of her government, all by herself. They owe her $300 billion, and they are collapsing. They're doing what she tells them to do because she now controls everything that goes on in that particular nation because of the affidavit process. Which
lends itself to, every time you hear here in the United States, we're a democracy, your head should snap around and you should just We are a republic. We are not a democracy. And I think anybody that says we're a democracy, you know what side they're on. We are a republic. And that story shows that one voice, one person can make all the difference.
That's right. You got to put it on record. And that's what we're doing. We're collecting the evidence. We're putting them on record. And we've got the receipts. And boy, do we have quite a bit of them.
I love it. All right, my friend, thank you for coming on and explaining some of these difficult subjects and how we arrived where we are. And I think we take it piece by piece and people are able to understand it themselves and then push back. We're not saying fight, we say push back. And when you go in and you start studying, you'll be able to start doing notices and come to the classes on Wednesday nights at 7:00, correct?
Correct.
Correct. All right.
Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about suffrage tomorrow night. So all about voting.
I love it. Suffrage, all about voting. It doesn't mean, eating some wrong food and getting a tummy ache. We're talking about voting, suffrage. Get it out of your heads, people. We got to get understanding of our words.
That's right. And don't let them change them.
No, don't let them change them. And if they do, we come after them. All right. You have yourself a great night, and thank you for everything you do. And I'll see you on the chat later on.
Okay.
Have a good one.